Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stevie Tolo from Gemini Multimedia Ltd. Today we're going to talk about something I called intellectual humility. I wanted to say intellectual honesty, like in French, but let me call it intellectual humility anyway. English is not my first language, but you know what I mean. What is that? Intellectual humility is the capacity to recognize our mistakes, our weaknesses, our lack of good performance, and the need for us to train more, to exercise more, to hone our skills, like they say. I've noticed that there are so many people, not necessarily seasoned interpreters, but generally new interpreters, and those who have not gone through any training, those who have never been exposed to the profession, those who have never worked in the booth, who claim that they are conference interpreters, they are professional interpreters. I'm talking about simultaneous interpreters. And when it comes to the fact now to be on the job, we realize that they have a lot of gaps and there's so much for them to improve. And let's be honest, when you can't just recognize and admit that you can't and you need more training, no matter what, even if you had your 5-6 master's degree, it's still not enough. Our profession is judged like a mason who is in front of a wall. We know how he's going to construct, and then we judge by the sustainability of the wall, the chemical content of the cement, and so on and so forth. So it's a very hands-on, practical type of job. I have identified 3 types of mistakes that many people make when they claim that they are professional interpreters, and fortunately that's not the case. Number 1, your language combination. You know that in our profession, we take from one language and we render into another language. So if there's a conference that is French and English, let's say the 2 languages, sometimes we can have one single booth for 2 interpreters who are bi-directional. So it means that they can go from English to French and French to English without any problem, no hesitation. Fine. Okay. I won't say both languages are, spoken, perfectly. There's no perfection in this world, but they can do the job. And then there are some meetings where we still have French and English, but we recommend to have either 2 interpreters booths. So one booth will be for 2 interpreters for English, and then one booth for 2 interpreters for French, to create some kind of balance. And normally this is what happens when we have training, intense training, 5-day, 10 days and stuff like that, 10-day training. Or sometimes we can have a single booth but shared with 3 interpreters. So the 3rd interpreter will act as a pivot, or pivot in French anyway. So what it does is that when we believe that the conference is like 75% into French, so the 2 French interpreters will be interpreting into French, and then sometimes there's some kind of balance intervention in French in the room. So the pivot or the pivot, the 3rd interpreter, will help them balance. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It also works when there is French. So there are 3. But when it comes to English, he comes in maybe because his level is so good, or because he has that native level, or because he's more comfortable interpreting into English. So that's the 3 situations. Unfortunately, we've noticed that there are many colleagues who just affirm, confirm, and claim that they can do bi-direction meetings. And sometimes it turns out to be disasters, catastrophes. And it creates a lot of problems. It has happened to me so many times in this career, where you take up a language which is not yours, for which you are not comfortable in, or for which your rendering or your performance it's a total disaster. It's a big disappointment for delegates in the room, because it ends up like a deaf and blind language, and people don't know what you're talking about. People lack substance, and people are not happy with the participation at such a meeting. So you have to recognize when you know that you have a weak booth or a weak combination, like you can't take it both ways, you can only take one way. Just be honest and tell people that I'm not comfortable with this. That's the first one. The second is when it comes to terminology, the topic is might not be something that you are familiar with. We have people who are very phobic when it comes to mathematical related or mathematics related topics, or when it comes to accounting, when it comes to justice, law. For them it's like a nightmare. Meanwhile, we have interpreters who can address law related topics, themes very easily, because they probably have a legal background and they're good at that. They've been handling cases for years. Maybe they were court interpreters before becoming simultaneous interpreters, because simultaneous interpreters are supposed to be kind of universal, unless you are a simultaneous interpreter for a specific organization that addresses maybe one single topic, like children's rights, or an organization that is about health, like World Health Organization. So you should be in this health realm. So when you know the topic is quite a challenge, there are two ways. The first way is just to give up and say, hey, thank you for the offer, but I don't think I can handle that meeting because the topic is super hard for me. I'd rather suggest another colleague who can do the job. Or you can do like me. I'm very what can I say, opinionated, not really stubborn, but hard-headed. So what I do, I embark on the journey. I give myself a challenge, especially if the meeting is planned a month ahead. I just take up into some sort of avid reading about the contents, the conference, and also the past meetings related to the same topic. So I try to know the words, and it's not really perfect, but hey, I'll be able to grab at least 80% of the jargon and stuff like that. That one is okay, but not when you are called 48 hours before, 3 days before, and you know the topic is something that you are not really familiar with. So this is the second case. The third case is what I keep encountering here, where I'm based in Kigali, Rwanda. I receive tons of messages, emails, WhatsApp messages, Facebook, TikTok, because I advertise almost everywhere, and that's how I got my client. And people call me and they're like, hey, Stevie, hi, I've seen the company. I can see that you are into interpreting. Can you take me on your team? I'm also an interpreter. Sometimes I ask, have you been trained? They say, no, I've not been trained, but I've been doing it at church. I'm a tour guide. I've been accompanying people. I speak 4 languages. So I say, fine, no problem. I don't always judge people, but what I do is I invite them to my office, and when they get to my office, I activate my Zoom and I assign them as interpreters. Remember, the Zoom Pro never had the interpreting feature before. It was an added feature called webinar option. But now, if you have the Zoom Pro, which is $14.99 a month, you can be able to activate the interpreting option and as a host. So I just assign them as interpreters, and I make sure I also get them a random, official, well clear, high quality sound video of a speech and stuff like that, randomly, depending on their combinations. So when I start listening, I don't judge them, but they, at the end of the day, after a minute or 2 or 5 minutes, maximum 5 minutes, sometimes they give up and they're like, that's not for me. I'm not meant for that. It's too difficult. It's tough. I can't do that. I still have a lot to do. I like that. When you're honest. I've never seen somebody who is still stubborn, hard-headed, and continues to claim that they can still do. Because when they listen to themselves, and that is one of the biggest problems in this profession, even for those who are seasoned interpreters, even people like me, people used to say when I was in Ghana, I had that bad habit, sometimes to record myself, not to break confidentiality rules. No, it's not about confidentiality rules. We perfectly understand the ethics of the job, but sometimes for personal purposes, it's good to record yourself for 5 minutes. And maybe when it comes to a general topic, or let's say a public access meeting, so you record yourself, you try to listen back home for yourself. It's purely personal, and then you can see how you're performing. It really helped me a lot. I was like, did I sound like that? Oh, I sound like crap. Oh my god, what is that? Is that me? Is that Totoro? No, I need to improve my French. Or like, oh, I'm confusing, articles, le, la, le, so on and so forth. It's a funny exercise, but it's good because when you are your own judge, you can improve yourself. So I didn't want to go beyond the time. I'm Stevie Dainjada Tutul from Gemini Multimedia Ltd, and thank you so much for listening to me, and take care. Bye bye.